Hey, it's Sherry Truler with Red Apple Auctions. Today we're going to be talking about longboard dancing. I'm joking. We're going to be talking about auctions today, as we always do. Specifically, we're going to be talking about guaranteed purchase, which is the opportunity for your guests in a mobile bidding environment or a silent auction paper bidding environment to pay for an item outright so that no one else has a chance to even bid on it. They're just buying it outright. Now, although this can be used in mobile bidding, I'm specifically going to zero in more on paper bid sheets. And yes, there are still people that are using paper bid sheets very successfully in their auctions. If you are a client of mine and you're not sure whether paper bid sheets is right for you, let's talk in the next consult. The reality is that there's some events that are better designed for mobile bidding, other events that are better designed for paper bid sheets. If your event is one that can accommodate paper bid sheets and you use all of the tools that I would recommend for paper bid sheets, what I have found is that my clients get higher returns on investment on their silent auction items than what they can achieve in a mobile bidding environment. One of those ways that they're maintaining a higher ROI is the proper use of a guaranteed purchase, which is what we're talking about here. So again, guaranteed purchase is where you're allowing people to buy an item outright in the auction. Now, there's a couple of things I want to talk about before we jump in and look at some of these bid sheets. First off, the average guaranteed purchase, run-of-the-mill, we'll say, is about 150 to 200% of value, meaning that if you have a $100 item, you are going to then sell that, offer that guaranteed purchase at 150 to 200%, $200, 150 to 200% of value. Now, there's always exceptions to that rule, but in general, that's it. So you're allowing people to overpay. It's almost a convenience fee that you're charging people for the convenience of getting something outright. They don't have to worry about it. They have just made a contribution and they got something that they wanted. Case in point, I was down in Naples working at an event. It was a beautiful event just right next to the ocean. And they had their silent auction on 4 tables. And then I was in the middle of those tables talking to people about the silent auction items available. And there was a beautiful jewelry tree with some jewelry on it. I believe that somebody who used to sell silpata jewelry had closed out their business. And so they had 8, 10 pieces. And the organization had bought a jewelry tree to display this jewelry on. So this woman kept coming around and she'd placed a bid and she kind of looked at it and she was really interested in it. And I chatted with her a bit about it. Well, pretty soon she brings her husband over. And so she's kind of talking to him and he's kind of looking at the bids and she's, like this sort of thing. And so he starts paying more attention to the bid sheet and he's like, well, now wait a second. And he looks at me. He said, now, if I put my bid number down here where it says guaranteed purchase, do I just get it for that price then? And I said, yeah. I said, it's really the best deal. I said, you put your number down there, you immediately get it and nobody else is going to have to bid against you. It's going to be yours. And he looks at his wife in astonishment, like she has not yet figured this out, and said, well, why wouldn't we just do that? So he leans over and he signs up for the guaranteed purchase. It is something that just solves a problem for him, right? His wife wanted it. He can afford it. Take care of it. She's going to get what she wants. They can go off and get a drink at the bar or enjoy the view or whatever. Problem solved. And that's what we see with the guaranteed purchase. It's an easy way to make a contribution. Your guests see it as a quick way to get what they want and move on about throughout the silent auction. Anywhere from 3 to 5% of your items should be selling as guaranteed purchase if you're using it on everything, which I would advocate that you should. And if you've got everything selling at guaranteed purchase, you might want to look at your numbers. Maybe your numbers are too low. Maybe you need to go higher than 150 or 200% of value. Maybe. I do advocate looking at each item and making sure that the guaranteed purchase for that item is accurate. You may have some items that you're like, man, I'd be thrilled if we just got a bid on this item. Well, if that's the case, maybe your guaranteed purchase shouldn't be 150% of value. Maybe it should be 80% of value. Give them a discount. Let somebody feel like they got something on sale and get it out of here. That's the attitude I would take. Another point to consider before we jump into some of the bid sheets here is to think about your group. Are you a glasses half full sort of group, or are you a glasses half empty sort of group? If you're a more positive committee, then absolutely use guaranteed purchase, because once you start to see things sold, you're going to get excited. In addition, all of the guests that are there, once they start to visually see that things are disappearing underneath their nose, they start to pay more attention to what's available to buy. And so they get more engaged in the silent auction immediately as well. You'll be high-fiving each other going, woo, we just sold that one. Woo, we just sold that one. And you're going to get excited because things are overselling. But if your glass is half empty sort of committee, then don't use guaranteed purchase, because nobody wants to hear you complaining later about how, oh, we could have sold this for another $20. You know, Helen over there said she would have bought it for 150 and we only had 120 on the guaranteed purchase. Get over it. Nobody wants to hear that. So if you're that kind of negative Nelly, don't use guaranteed purchase. Now, that said, I will tell you that Helen and a whole bunch of other people are always quick to point out that they would have paid more, and most of them wouldn't have, but whatever. Let's say maybe one of them would have. And if you're going to feel bad about that, then don't use guaranteed purchase. But I always advocate using it on everything and making some really good decisions about what you are going to feel good about selling that item for. You want it high enough that it's a little bit of a pain to the guest, but not so high that they just roll their eyes and walk away and say, I'm not going to pay that for that. Come on. You know, the key is it's a convenience fee. You're not like, you know, hammering them over the head like, yeah, pay $2,000 for this $100 item. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. So yeah, what is your attitude as a committee? Consider that. Look at your items to make sure that the guaranteed bid on each item matches and is reflective of what it should be given the quality of the item or the desirability of the item. And then the third thing really is to let's zero in here and look at how it needs to be set up on the bid sheets in order to be most successful for you. Let's start with some better designed bid sheets. Now, this one, what I like about the design is that all of the numbers are on the right-hand side and they have a nice amount of increments. We're starting at 30% of value. You'll notice it's a value of $100. So we're starting at 30% of value. We're running that in 10% increments. 140 is the last bid before the buy it now price, which is $150. So I like that there's that natural progression. I also like the fact that all of the numbers are on the right-hand side. I'll show you an example here shortly that doesn't do that, and I think it can be confusing to bidders because you just need to make it really easy for them visually so that they understand what's going on. Another well-designed bid sheet. This is a little blurry, but I think you can make it out. This was a sports memorabilia item. Value was $140. They're starting the bidding at $49. That's 35% of value. They're increasing the bids in 10% increments, ending with 266 is the last amount before the guaranteed bid. That, by the way, is 190% of value. And 200% of value is the 280, which is down there in that box, and it says guaranteed purchase outright buy on this line. I like the fact that the increments work. 266 to 280 flows. All the numbers are right there. To me, it's a pretty easy to understand bid sheet. Another one where the increments are right, but the design is wrong. So all of the numbers on the right-hand side are flowing fine, and the last bid is $140. The buy it now, though, is way over here, and it's tiny. I think people are going to miss that. They're not going to understand it. They're not going to see it, and so forth, and they'll think the last bid is $140. So from a design standpoint of the bid sheet, I would switch this around and make $150 right underneath that $140, and make the line buy it now bigger so that people see it. The increments on this are solid, but the design could create problems. So if you zero in over here, we see it's a $100 glass bowl. That's the value. It starts at $50. So they're starting at 50% of value. They're increasing that in, I think, 10% increments, roughly, a little bit more. 134 is the last regular bid, and then 150 is the guaranteed purchase. But do you see the physical space between 134 and 150? There's a line there. That can invite people to write their own bid. And if somebody was to write down $140, you would have a little bit of a dilemma because it's not the guaranteed purchase, but it's more than 134. But they didn't follow the rules because they didn't follow your bid increments. So the challenge becomes, do you take the 140 for an extra $6, or do you stay true and say, no, 134, that was the last real bid before the guaranteed purchase? It invites problems. Another bid sheet here. I advocate handwritten bid sheets, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. In this case, they had a Yeti cooler valued at almost $300, and they're starting at about 30% of value and increasing the increments. And all of that looks fine. But again, look at that physical space. We've got two lines between 434 and 449. And that invites problems because bidders will sometimes write their own bids instead of going up to the 449. They might write 435, they might write 440, whatever it is. So just from a standpoint of visually organizing this bid sheet, it's best if you just have it so that they can't be writing in their own bids between the last bid in the regular amounts and the guaranteed purchase. Now, here is an example of what happens when you do leave a lot of space. This is a group that does not have auction software, so they're designing this themselves. And although there's some nice things about this bid sheet, you'll notice that the last bid amount was $363. The value was $250 of that item. So you're looking at about 145% of value is the last normal bid. And they only had buy it nows at 150% of value. They had quite a few buy it nows at this group event because I think the guaranteed purchase was a bit too low. But that 375 is 150% of value. But do you see somebody wrote in? They wrote in because there's space to allow that writing. Here's some student artwork. People will always have questions about student artwork because it's priceless. Put a guaranteed purchase down that you'd be excited to get so that you don't complain later. So now the problem that I see here is that we've been increasing our bid amounts in $15 increments. We go 115, 130, 145, and then whoa, 225. What happened to the $15 increments? We're now at an $80 increment. So keep the increments the same as you flow into that guaranteed purchase. Logistically on the bid sheet, design-wise, keep that number over there on the right-hand side as well. Here's another one that kind of blows my mind. We've been going up in $5 increments, which, by the way, is way too nominal. But we've got 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. We're going up to 85. And then what? 115? Where'd that come from? That's a $30 increment. We were just doing $5 increments. Keep that win it now price in line with the bid increments. The other thing with this too is, to me, it's a little vague as to how you actually tell them that you want to buy it now. Like, you would have to know to circle it. If it was just a line like the other increments were, then you would know to put your bid number down. And finally, here's a disaster bid sheet. So in this case, we had a lot of space between our last bid and then the buy it now price. So we can see that bidder 450 wrote in his own price, which incidentally was higher than the buy it now price. And then look what was going down there in the buy it now price. All these people were like, well, wait, I'll do that same bid. I'll do 150. I'll do 150. And this can happen when you don't have your increments right or your buy it now right. You want to really think about what is it that we're going to be happy with and seems right for our crowd and our item. You're going to make some mistakes, but by and large, you'll get good at this and you'll be able to really crank up the returns that you're making in your silent auction. Of course, once you sell something in the silent auction, you can put a sign down so that people who are bidding in the silent auction can see that that item has sold at the buy now price. And the nice thing is that's a visual reminder to everybody else that's shopping in the auction that they need to pay attention. Things are selling out right underneath them. What I see happen is the first thing they'll do is they'll read about what they just missed out on buying, and then they'll start looking at the other items. But they were always curious to know what they missed out on. There's a lot of things that you can do in your silent auction to improve the return on investment, but at least this is a little bit of a start when it comes to guaranteed bid. There you have it. Are you going to use it on your next silent auction? No? Yes? We'll see. If so, let me know how it turns out. I'm Sherry with Red Apple Auctions. As always, good luck to you in your fundraising auction. Bye.